to kind of segue a little bit to our next point, we mentioned the just powerhouse performances from both actors.
Yeah. Oh,
and
sure, yeah.
Brad Pitt ended up winning an Oscar for that role.
Yeah.
So the Oscars.
Yeah.
What did you think of this year's Oscars?
The little golden trophy.
Because it hasn't been good in the past few years, I feel like.
No.
Last year especially, I was really kind of mad, especially when they get up and they're like, well, first of all, the whole meme of the Black Panther being nominated in every category was really irritating to me. But then when they get up and they go, okay, Best Picture goes to Green Book. That I was like, okay, you've shot yourself in your foot. You've shot yourself in the foot, and then to try and fix it, you sawed your foot off.
I'll be real with you. I did not see Green Book. I did not see it.
It's such a waste of time.
To me,
it's
the
most
idea that the guys who made
numbers.
Dumb and Dumber were going to make like a woke movie. It's
like if you watched like Tropic Thunder, where they have those fake trailers in the beginning, and they have the Robert Downey Jr. one where it's like so blatantly like the Oscar bait. Yes. That's what Green Book is. Every single decision, every single decision is just like, what can we do that's gonna, or like the fucking Family Guy, where it's like that Oscar movie where it's like, this World War II
Oscar Gold,
Oscar Gold, right? So it's that was so it's left such a bad taste in my mouth where I was like, I kind of feel obligated to watch it every year just because I like there are legitimately good movies that are nominated and I want to see them succeed. But in the past few years, it's just been like just such a letdown after letdown after letdown. But this year, I feel like they kind of really they gave the movies that deserved the awards what they deserved.
Yeah,
with maybe the exception of The Lighthouse. That should have gotten cinematography, I feel like.
I am inclined to agree that Lighthouse probably would have been a good choice for cinematography. So I didn't love 1917 at all. I think it's really way overrated, to be perfectly honest with you. I think something you were talking about on your first episode when you were talking about Climax was that Climax, it might be not one take, but it's not those obvious shots of like, well, we're going to pan over this rock.
Right, yeah.
And maybe it's because the movie is sold as being like one take, but like when I'm watching the movie, I'm like, this thing's got more takes in it than a regular movie does.
Exactly.
More edits or cuts or whatever.
Every single time there's like anything in front of the lens, like that's not the main characters. It's just so blatant. Like, okay, we're gonna mask this out and put a cut right there, and also drop in
that CGI rat.
Yeah, oh god.
I mean, like, here's the only reason I was surprised by what happened was because I was so focused on the CGI rat. I was like, I can't believe you guys are doing a rat right now. And then the explosion happens, and I was like, okay, touche.
Justified. But I did like 1917, but like you said, it's just like credit where credit's due. It was not like it's so clear to like anyone who knows anything about movies that it's so cheated.
So like, let me ask you about this, because in my mind, I feel like people are put these two movies right next against each other, and for my mind, like, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I think Dunkirk is vastly superior to 1917. You know, I just think people like complain about the characters, like lack of character in Dunkirk and everything like that, and I'm like, yeah, it's war. Things are crazy. You don't really have the time to like get everyone's life story. You know, it's like it's a hectic kind of thing, and then he's doing all those timelines, which are fun, and then. You know, I only ever saw the movie like in theaters in IMAX, but like I don't really want to see it any other way again, because it's like the sound and the design of that movie is great. The whole thing's beautiful. Tom Hardy proving again I can just act with just my eyes. Like I think he's done it like 3 or 4 times now. You know, Fury Road, Bane, and that. Right. But yeah, I mean, like Dunkirk, as far as I'm concerned, and I feel like people don't love Dunkirk. As far as I'm concerned, Dunkirk over 1917 by a country mile. Yeah,
I still very much enjoyed 1917, but it's definitely Dunkirk is definitely much better, I would say.
I also didn't super appreciate having a bunch of character actors pop up and be like, and now I'm here to be the British general.
Yeah. And they're advertised way more in the trailer. Yes. Like, that really annoys me when it's like, hey, we got Colin Firth and Benedict Cumberbatch, and they show up for, like, literally a 5-minute scene, and then they're gone.
I don't like Mark Strong. To me, Mark Strong, a lot
Where
of
was
times,
he again?
Mark Strong is
Oh, the guy on the truck, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Another thing with that movie, and it's a problem I have when I watch movies where I'm thinking about the movie that could have been, as opposed to just watching the movie that it is or whatever.
Yeah.
But then on the truck there was that guy who's, I think he's an Indian soldier or something like that. He had a turban on, and I don't know, something about him like kind of leapt out to me where I was like, that's a super compelling story, actually. Like, I want to see what his whole deal is, because he seemed like a funny guy. He like cracked a joke or whatever, and I was like, already I'm like, for whatever reason, just because like him in this setting is new and interesting looking or whatever, I'm already more like, I care more about him than I do about this guy
trying to save his friend's brother.
Yeah, which I will say, that's something I did like about the movie, was that it is that I enjoyed the scene where he finally got to talk to the brother, and I was like, I like that this is kind of a bittersweet, ending. We're not doing full on Saving Private Ryan.
I was that made me happy, because I was watching it, and I really liked that first 20 minutes when they're like, okay, we got to get out of the bunker, and they're going through like that no man's land. That was really good up until they get in the bunker and there's all those CGI rats. But like, I was fully expecting it was going to be like a Saving Private Ryan thing, where there was going to be this big reunion with the brothers, and it's going to be like, oh man, I saved you, oh my god, I owe you one. And then when the brother dies, like I was really happy with that. Like, I was like,
did you not see that coming?
I didn't see that coming. So, well, when the moment where he's like, we got to save him, like, I was like, okay, that's not something bad's gonna happen.
But
so
I got very frustrated at the main character not learning his lesson from like, you got to shoot the bad guys, bud. You just, because you didn't. Your friend's dead, and then later on in the movie, he also like hesitates to shoot, and I'm like, you gotta kill these people. This is war. The other real quick, most egregious rat in the movie, is it 1917 or is it The Departed? Yeah,
I'd say this one by far.
Yeah,
at least that one is.
I believe it's a real rat in The Departed.
Exactly. But yeah, so I mean, so we touched on that one. I guess let's just go down the best picture list, because I mean, we could talk forever, and then if we have any other ideas, we'll pop up. So we touched a little bit on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, 1917. I know you have some hot takes on Marriage Story. We talked about that a little bit. What are your thoughts on that?
Marriage Story, politely, it's not for me. In general, I don't like Noah Baumbach. He does this thing, and I feel like I've expressed this to you before, that I also have the issue with Rian Johnson personally, where I feel like it is a person who lost an argument with somebody in real life and then thought of the comeback a couple minutes later and is like, well, now I need to make the movie so that they can never rebuttal, and then this is set in stone right here.
Right.
And I really feel that in the scene, I don't know if you know that it was memed to hell, but the fight scene where Adam Driver punches the wall, like, I saw that before I even saw the movie. Maybe that colored it for me. But I've never seen two people act so hard and make me feel nothing. It didn't do it for me. ScarJo is not. I personally don't think she's that great of an actress.
Okay.
I think she's got her things that she shines in. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a great actor, so who am I to like really? But it's like one of those things. Adam Driver is a good actor. I think he's doing the best with what he's got. I think of Noah Baumbach and Adam Driver, this is much less egregious than While We're Young, which is like the other movie where Noah Baumbach is trying to like get back at the catfish guy. I don't know if you know any of that stuff.
This is the only Noah Baumbach movie I've seen.
At
least that I can think of. I don't know his filmography that extensively.
I think Squid and the Whale is one people really recommend. I have not seen it, so maybe that's like something I do need to do. I'm just kind of focused. Personally, for me, what I know of him is the more recent Netflix releases. But they've both just been kind of like...
What's the other one?
While We're Young. I don't know if it was a Netflix release necessarily, but that's where...
Like a streaming service type.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen it there a bunch. But yeah, it just doesn't... Marriage Story is nothing for me. Who won Best Actress?
I think it went to... I had it in mind. Oh, Renee Zellweger. For the Judy Garland movie, which I didn't even know it existed until
I knew it existed.
I saw the show.
I just didn't see it. I mean, it just was one of those ones where I was like, yeah, that's probably not for me.
I will say her speech, like, that was hilarious because we were watching it and her speech went on for so long.
Oh, well, at like one point
it was
she
so
like,
painful.
I wish I remembered exactly what it was, but I remember at one point she kind of like equated like Nazis with something else, and I was like, well, those are not those. No, it wasn't that. She said I don't
even remember. I just remember being like she
great
is still
figures.
Talking.
Here's what it was. She said like great figures like Harriet Tubman and Martin Scorsese, and I was like, whoa, I don't think Harriet Tubman would like. Well, there's a bunch of stuff where Harriet Tubman's like picture was up, and like all these people are like dancing around it, and all these rich white people in tuxedos watching. I was like, I don't think Harriet. I mean, who am I to say? I'm not, I'm certainly a white person, but like for me, I was like, I don't know if this is what she was about. We haven't even gotten her on the 20 yet. Let's hook it up first.
Oh man.
But yeah, Renee's speech was a little wild. Joaquin's speech,
Yeah.
I was a fan. I like Joaquin. He's my favorite of all time. At least living, but I'm pretty sure all time.
Yeah.
If we had to go like, where is the debate? It's gonna go to my other master. I like Philip Seymour Hoffman a lot. Yeah. I mean, he's amazing.
They're both. I don't know if I have a favorite per se, but they're both definitely would be in the top 5.
Yeah.
If I had to narrow it down.
Yeah.
I think this was one of those scenarios where he. I guess we can. Well,
sorry.
We'll talk a little bit on Mayer's story, but just since I already brought it up, I think that this was clearly a scenario where it's like, okay, you've been nominated a bunch and you haven't won, so we'll give you one this time because you should have won before. But
yeah, and that happened with Leo too.
Yeah.
And that's The Revenant was one of those movies where I was like, I mean, you just threw this guy in the cold and he's shivering for
give
real.
Him something.
I mean, yes, give him something, but I was also like, that's not really acting. He's just legitimately cold on camera, right? Like he looks uncomfortable. I believe that he's uncomfortable, actually.
Right.
And like Leo would say as much. He's like, yeah, I'm like dragging myself through the snow, and it's like, okay, so you're not really. I mean, you're acting, but it's also like you're putting yourself in that position right there.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, like Leo is like one where I'm like, I thought he should have won it for Wolf of Wall Street. And if he had beaten Joaquin this year, I would have been pretty stoked about that because I think this is a career best performance for Leo.
Okay.
Once Upon a Time. Joaquin, I like Joker. Wildly over-nominated. Like,
yeah.
The fact
this was this year's Black Panther.
Yeah. And so I was real up in arms about Black Panther because I don't like the Marvel movies. I don't like the Disney movies. And I personally just didn't love Black Panther. I didn't see what the push was.
I will say there were elements, like the smaller elements about Black Panther were very, like the stuff like production design and costume design. I could see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it got nominations for that, but the thing that you could just so clearly tell that it was this big PR push for it to get Best Picture because of the representation issue, which I mean, like,
is an issue.
Yeah, it is an issue.
Yeah,
but I
absolutely.
think that if you're gonna have a big push to have a movie where it's like this is what we are in 2019 or 2020, it shouldn't be Black Panther. There were way more like if Beale Street Could Talk same year was wildly better.
Yeah.
And that deserved way more nominations. I think it did win a few, but that deserved way more attention than it got. Point being, the whole Black Panther thing getting nominated for everything under the sun just it definitely deserved some of those smaller ones like production design and I think it was like hair, makeup, and costume or whatever. Like those wins were definitely deserved.
That's where comic book movies should be getting their
right.
Recognition.
But I think the fact that it was nominated for Best Picture and not Best Screenplay, Best Director, Best Leading Actor, that was very indicative that was like a big push to be like,
here, we're doing this for you.
Exactly.
You
yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I definitely don't think that.
And once you get to that point, anyway, sorry to cut you off, but it's like if your whole point is like, here we're showing you how into this representation issue we are, and it's so blatantly fake, then like why even make the effort in the first place? You know what I mean? If it's so disingenuous.
It's hard. Once again, I don't know. It's hard for me because it's like, well, I feel these ways, but I'm also a white person. So who am I to be like saying how are you? Who are either of us to be having conversations about like Tolkienization or like any of that stuff via representation? But what I would say is like, to me, I would feel like I was being pandered to, and then also pandered to, and then you weren't going to give me the award anyway. So like,
right.
I just feel like
what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. But with that, I mean, I remember being kind of like, why do we need to have like these Marvel movies, these comic book movies in there? Why do we need to be like nominated? They even did like the popular picture thing for a second there before. That was. But now I find myself singing a different tune to Joker, the movie about the white mentally ill male. Oh boy, it's a little showing,
exactly. Right.
But I mean, Joaquin turns in a great performance. I agree. Not the performance. I mean, the master for me is like that's the one.
Yeah.
What are we doing? Not giving him the Oscar for that right there, or Walk the Line, or like
who even won that year? I don't remember.
Walk the Line?
No. The Master who won over him that year.
Master. I don't know. It was 2012.
2012. I don't know.
I'm having a hard time picking it out, but
Here, I'm gonna look it up really quick.
do you
I'm
think?
curious here. Yeah, you keep talking.
Yeah, Master is so good. Yeah, I mean, like, not the role he should have gotten it for, though he does a great job in a movie that, like, looks great.
Easily the best part of that entire movie, I think.
Joaquin.
Yeah, Joaquin.
Yeah. Oh, you see, I'm a Mark Maron guy. I liked it when Mark Maron was mean to the clown guy. Yeah, I mean, Joaquin's amazing. I think the cast is really good in that movie. It looks beautiful. Something to be said for, like, it's a comic book movie shot on film. Like, give me that little bit of Kino right there. And the score, which is, like, I think maybe the only thing it won for, but the score is, like, fantastic. Yeah, score. It is really good.
It was. I wish I could pronounce the woman's name who won. So many weird accent marks and all that. I sound so privileged.
Oh, yeah. It's just like, I'm not even they're not even worthy of my attempt at their name.
Yeah,
exactly.
But she definitely deserved it. It was very, especially there was this one bit they used it a few times, I think, like the beginning and then the bathroom scene and then maybe once towards the end. Like that violin. That was
beautiful. I love it. It's really good.
Yeah.
And as far as, like, there's a lot of ways they could have done the, like, character's, like, realization of, like, the transformation into, like, what he became or whatever. Right. And, like, that bathroom scene is, like, a beautiful way to do it. He's just, like, pirouetting and, like, doing, like, ballet through there, and he's, like, expressing his pain but also, like, realizing he's on his way to becoming something that is, like, what he identifies with.
Exactly.
Very interesting. A lot of cool stuff. I also think there's something to be said for all these Marvel movies and all these other comic book movies out there that are, like, super nationalistic and militaristic. You got Captain America, literally, and then you got Captain Marvel, who, like, she's in the Navy or she's in the Air Force, and little girl should join the Air Force, and then all this stuff. I think it's actually pretty great to have a movie that's like, hey, kill the rich and also give people mental health care because they deserve it or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's a nice little turn. I don't think necessarily. I think sometimes that stuff's going to go over a lot of people's heads. Like, I hear some people. Maybe this is a transition here. I hear some people talking about Parasite. And some of these people that I hear talking about it, I don't agree with their politics at all. And it's one of those things where I'm like, how do you feel that way in your heart, and yet you didn't understand the point of this movie, right? Or how did that go? How did you like it, but the point went over your head?
Right, completely over your head.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we can get into that. I'm going to let's save Parasite for the last. That way we can segue into that discussion point.
Oh, yes, I forgot.
So we've talked about... So we talked about Joker. Let's circle back a little bit to Marriage Story. I'm kind of interested in why you think that, like, that argument scene, why that's such a glaring.
It's just, I don't know. Like, it's hard. Maybe, like, this is just like I'm a pretty easy crier.
Okay.
And when I think about, like, consistent or not consistent, but, like, semi one take acting like that is really gonna do funny, but also on a dime turn into, like, heartbreakingly sad. Right. I think a good example of that is Jim Cummings' Thunder Road, which is like one of my favorite movies. And I feel it all. I believe it on the actor and everything like that. Okay. For whatever reason, when it's Laura Dern and
that really, like, she was good, but
she's good at being bad.
Yeah. That's one of those
her
things where it's
she's
just
really
like,
good.
Yeah. She definitely deserved that award.
Yeah, I like Laura Dern. She's really taken on some roles recently that are like, I want you to hate me.
Yeah.
The Last Jedi being one. But it's like The Last Jedi, and then I think she's in, I didn't see it, but Big Little Lies season 2. She's also like apparently like a pretty evil antagonist in that one.
Gotcha.
I don't know how else to say it. But she's fantastic. It's not hitting for me. I don't like the director. ScarJo is, like, just so on me. I also can't stand that she's engaged to or dating Colin Jost. Like, get out of here. Just you be white elsewhere. But
I'm, like, almost the opposite, though. Like, I think that she did a really good job, not maybe in that argument scene, but the scene where she's first talking to Laura Dern, especially.
That's maybe the strong point of the movie for her.
When I saw that, I was like, okay, I can see why she would have gotten that nomination.
Yeah, but also
Adam
two
Driver,
nominations.
Yeah. I think that she definitely deserved it for Jojo Rabbit too. I really liked her in that, especially that scene where she pretends to be the dad. And
I haven't seen Jojo.
You should. It's definitely worth it. My only complaint about it is that it feels a little bit too Wes Anderson-y.
Oh, it's like
at points,
yeah,
basically, yeah. So it's very, very funny, and
I got to see it. I don't.
I liked it a lot.
I have to see it. I like Taika. I loved What We Do in the Shadows. As far as the comic book movies that annoy the hell out of me, I really liked Thor Ragnarok when it came out.
He's one of the best comedy directors working today. I think
he's good. Also, the What We Do in the Shadows TV show is also
I haven't checked it out
A+
yet.
stuff. It's very good.
Do they do it?
It's not a remake. It's like
this is happening in New Zealand and also elsewhere. Or
I don't know exactly how to put it. It just feels good. It nails what the tone is of the movie and like the whole mockumentary style and everything like that without reusing jokes. I mean, I guess there's been hundreds of years worth of vampire lore to make jokes about, so it's kind of an infinite well. But within context of the movie, is it? I don't think any of the characters from the movie show up in the show at all.
But are they like canonically like it's a timeline where it's like this is happening in New Zealand, but then this show is also happening elsewhere? Or you don't know?
As far as I know, it doesn't make pains to like say that they're connected or that the movie even exists.
Okay.
But it's like all new characters, but the same kind of dynamics that are going on, right? They found what the tone is of the movie, and they were like, okay, they found a way to.
I was really worried about that too, because like I have a big problem, and we can touch on this a little bit later with Parasite, but I have a big problem when something is like something foreign or something independent is successful, and then the response is to then take the source material and turn it into something new.
So you're referring to the Adam McKay miniseries? The Parasite?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
I hate it when you have something that is already successful and you're worried about it not being as well received because it's foreign or because it's too independent, so you just buy the source material and then remake it. I'm a huge proponent against that.
I don't know what they're doing with that.
Yeah.
I know that hope is that it's
producing it.
It's Fargo style, personally.
Okay.
Because I love the Fargo TV show. I think it's great. It's amazing. Love the tone of it. I think they transfer that into a long form thing pretty perfectly. Mm-hmm. It's also 3, short seasons or whatever. I think what you need to do with a Parasite miniseries, if the gods have now deemed that we must have this, unfortunately, we can't just let a movie be good. Yeah. I think you need to just focus on the themes and the tone and everything like that. Yeah, and you don't need to work on the plot. Mm-hmm. It doesn't need to be that exact plot they've got there. Though now that I'm like thinking about it, I'm sure anyone who's thought about it, with dollar signs in their eyes for a second, it's like, well, we could certainly pad that out.
Exactly.
There's a lot of character building. I want to hear more about the Tudor's relationship with the 15-year-old girl or whatever. It's like, we wanted to glaze over that in the movie. We want to like these characters.
Okay. So let's. So we got that out of the way. You said you didn't see Jojo Rabbit.
I did not see Jojo Rabbit.
I would strongly recommend it.
I'll check it out.
It's not. There's parts of it where you're like, okay, but there's a lot of. The one thing I'll say is that it's very. I don't know how to word it without doing it a disservice. It's very funny, but at the same time, it weaves drama very, very well, and it's never like at the point where you're like, it never takes it like. It takes advantage of like of the fact that the Holocaust is real and that World War II is happening, but it's always at the expense of the Nazis. It's never at the to an extent it's at the expense of the Jews, because you have like all these characters being like, they hang from the ceiling like bats, and they're like so you have those, but like it's more to the point of like, look how crazy
ridiculous
these people were. It's such an original way and such I think a good way to talk about issues like acceptance and prejudice and racism and all that. It's very, very fresh, I think.
So my only thing with JoJo, and the thing that's kind of kept me from stopping it, is I'm done with like goofy Nazis personally. Especially just we got our current world climate. We don't have to get like too much in everything or whatever. But it's like I don't these people suck. I don't need to see them portrayed in like a nice light, or not even a nice light, but like, oh gosh, aren't they goofy? Kind of like, it's like, no, these people are mass murdering,
And that's one thing.
Foot soldiers of a mass murderer madman. They must be destroyed.
I think but that's one thing that they do well is that it's less so that, oh man, look how goofy. Like there certainly are those moments where it's like, look how goofy this is, but for the most part, it's like, look how like the kind of like in Django Unchained where you have the scene with the white supremacists and they're like trying to figure out how to put on the hoods.
Yeah.
That's sort of like the tone of the whole movie.
Okay.
Look how dumb these people are.
The one thing that I had,
and then the comedy
like,
derived from that.
Read or I heard or whatever was Taika like refused to do any research to play Hitler because he's like, what would piss him off more than like me, like a New Zealand Jew or whatever he is playing the guy, and I'm like, that's pretty honorable. I like that idea there.
And he's easily one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Taika's great. I mean, he's great. I like Taika.
Relief.
I like Taika. He knows what he's doing behind the camera, in front of it when he's acting. He's got it.
It's very good. I think it definitely deserved it for best screenplay. I didn't know that it was adapted.
Yeah, it's adapted, right?
I didn't know that. I thought it was original, and that like really, I was like, oh man, I can't.
So what were the other adapted?
The other adapted nominees?
I think that was a big upset that they didn't give Greta Gerwig the Little Women adaptation.
I think that she should have been nominated because I didn't see the movie, but from what I saw, I was really surprised that she didn't get nominated for director for this, but she did for Lady Bird.
Give it to her. Give it to her over Todd Phillips for Joker. I mean, like by and large, the other best director nominees, I'm like, actually, Todd Phillips and Sam Mendes, bye boys. Let Bong, Quentin, and Scorsese chill over here in legend territory,
Bring
and
in
then
Greta
can come in, and she can be in the running too, and everything like that. But
I
guess as far as the representation goes, that it's like all male and 4 out of the 5 are white dudes is not the best look. But I didn't see Little Women. I really want to. I heard it's a really good. Like specifically in the category of adapted screenplay, I heard it's a really good adaptation because there are parts of the movie that, like, if you're not familiar with the source material, you would assume, oh, that must have been like the big scene of the book, and really it's like just something that she, in her own words, kind of did with the themes of the book. Which I haven't seen the movie, so who am I to really speak on it?
Exactly.
But I think it's like one of those things where it's like, well, I heard that was a very good job that she did. At least,
and that's kind of where I'm at too. So. For adapted screenplay, the nominees were Taika for JoJo, Steve Zalian for The Irishman. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Anthony McCartan for The Two Popes, which I didn't know a thing about until the show happened.
I refuse to see it.
Greta Gerwig for Little Women, and then Todd Phillips and Scott Silver for Joker. That was best adapted.
So just not having seen Taika, or not having seen JoJo, I would still want it to go to Little Women, but also I love The Irishman, and I think it's like that book is an undertaking to like put it all into the perspective, and maybe some of that is in the editing or whatever, or the way that Scorsese chooses to like tell that story, and everything like that. So it's hard to say where that really kind of comes in. It's always hard with like the adapted screenplay kind of stuff. When you've got like a major auteur behind the camera, it's like, well, who's really I
want there to be one year where someone wins best adapted screenplay and just goes, I just kind of copied the book.
Oh, like, total copy and paste. I'm doing my source material.
Exactly. So it's just like, no big deal. But going off of that, The Irishman. So you really liked that one?
Yes, and I was lukewarm on it the first time I saw it for sure.
Okay. I only ever saw it the once.
So I've seen it, I think 3 or 4 times. One time. Like 2 of those times were on my iPhone, which, like David Lynch would shoot me in the face. Have you seen that?
I can't watch a movie on your fucking phone.
It's such a sadness. You think you've seen a movie on your fucking telephone. It's like the way his voice breaks with fucking is like, wow, this is a nice, calm man who does transcendental meditation, but he's very upset at the idea of somebody. But by like second and third time, I think we're on my phone at work. And I really like it. It's all the performance is great. It's career best performance from Pesci, who, if it wasn't going to go to Brad Pitt, in my mind, it had to go to Pesci because it was like he came out of retirement for it, and it's like
who are the other people?
Pacino was one of them.
Okay.
Hopkins was one.
Then Tom Hanks for the Mr. Rogers movie.
Oh yeah, I'm not seeing. I didn't see that. Have you seen the documentary?
Parts of it, not all of it.
See, I saw the documentary and I was like, yeah, I don't need to see the movie. I don't need to see. I'm good. I got the real thing here. I don't need to watch Tom Hanks.
From what I heard, the documentary was much better. But I enjoyed him in the Mr. Rogers movie. It's like kind of the same thing with Joker, where he's the best part, but there's only so many scenes, and I that's what he was like in real life. So it's hard to say. Like,
yes,
but there's only so many scenes where I can be like, oh, Tom Hanks is being selfless again. Like,
yeah.
It was good. I liked it, but yeah, I think you're right. If it wasn't going to go to Pitt, then it should have gone to Pesci. It was, was really good.
And then a close third for me has got to be Pacino, because Pacino's so much fun. Like, Pesci's not really fun in The Irishman. It's not what he's supposed to do. He's a very like subdued. This guy who's always like, you muttering, stuttering, like, you know. He's and he's an old man, and he's like chilling out. One of the hardest I've laughed in a theater all year is Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro's first scene together, where Joe Pesci unironically calls Robert De Niro kid, and I was like, oh boy, we're in for it now. But Pesci's great. I think he was great in the movie. I think a lot of people really complain about the last half hour, 40 minutes, and to me, I'm like, yeah, that the part you're complaining about is the whole point of the movie.
Right.
It's, you know, it's the movie, I think pretty obviously, is his response to the criticism that he's gotten over his career for like making the same movie over and over again, quote unquote, and glorifying gangster violence and, you know, like Wolf of Wall Street, all these terrible people. When the real thing is, like, if you're watching these movies and you're like, cool guys, I want to be like those guys, you're a bad person.
Exactly.
Like, that's on you. That's not on Martin Scorsese for like telling an interesting story in a fun way, you know? So I look at The Irishman, you look at the way it's shot, and it's dark because they have to do all that CGI stuff too. And it's got that very kind of pallid.
Which, have you looked at the way that they did all the de-aging stuff? It's very impressive.
Yes, for sure. It's impressive.
Crazy.
It's still like
there's parts. Well, I think for the most part it worked. There's definitely parts like where it's in like broad daylight, and they're getting up and walking. You can very clearly, whenever they have like a shirt that like really accentuates the neckline, you can like clearly tell. Oh yeah, we're hiding like skin folds and
the big
all sorts
scene
of stuff
is
like that.
It's the shop scene.
Right.
That's the scene where he's kicking the guys. The scene where you're like, well, they should have just got a body double, because that's an 80-year-old man. But it's. You know, it's very kind of boring. Even like when you look at like that opening tracking shot, and then you compare that to like the Coca Cabana shot in Goodfellas or whatever. There's like, so much going on in the Goodfellas shot, and this is very like reserved. It's like we're coming through. You can feel like Scorsese aging and like maturing, but also he's trying to tell a different type of story.
Right.
I think the violence in that movie is, in a good way, shot very boringly, because it's not trying to glorify it. It's trying to say, no, this it just happens like this, you know, this is just like what it is. And then you get to that last like 40 minutes and people are like, yeah, we can wrap it up now, because this was a less good Goodfellas to me. That's for whatever reason the prism I'm watching this movie through or whatever. So this boring part, I don't want to see it. And it's like, no, the whole point of the movie, especially like it's illustrated with whenever a new character is introduced and then you see how they died and everything like that. And the whole point of that movie is to say, like, you know, in all of the other movies and a lot of people in real life, the way this ends is you get shot in the back of the head or something like that. And that's the end of your story. What happens when you've been like a horrible person your entire life, and you've made terrible decisions, and now you just have to become an impotent old man and like live with that. And like, you know, your daughter not wanting to talk with you. And what was it all for? You know, you killed your best friend and you're silent. And now, like, nobody's around to keep the secrets anymore. Who are you protecting? That whole thing, you know, leave the door open, which is like, I don't know if you remember that. That was Jimmy Hoffa said that earlier in the movie. Right. You know, it's kind of like a very, but yeah, I think it went over my head a bit the first time I saw it, but I needed to digest it. It's a new Scorsese movie. I haven't seen it, you know, and it's like one of those things where it's like, I accept that this is going to be in the Pantheon now, and, you know, I will have.
I think there's already talks to have it on the Criterion Collection.
And I think it deserves
that,
to be there.
Marriage Story, and I think Parasite are all getting added this year, if I'm not mistaken.
Parasite and The Irishman, yeah. But yeah, I mean, what were your thoughts on Irishman?
I really liked it. The one thing that I kind of noticed when I was watching it was funny. We were at my fiance's parents' house when I watched it the first time, and they have this like huge flat screen TV. and I was sitting down watching it, and her dad came in and was like, "Oh, this is that new that's a Scorsese movie, right? De Niro and Pesci." And we kind of he watched a little bit of it and then went out and did something else, and he came back at around like the 3-hour mark and was like, "Oh man, this is still going on." So I
imagine how Robert De Niro feels.
it was, but like it was kind of interesting because I knew it was long. I knew it was going to be like 3.5 hours, but in my head I was like, well, anytime Scorsese does something that long, you usually don't feel it because you're so wrapped up in, like Wolf of Wall Street. That's almost the same runtime, but it doesn't feel that long. It feels way shorter. But this kind of relishes in the fact that it's like really taking its time and like showing you like this is the start of my career to the end of my career. And this is how it's worn on me across all these years.
Yes.
And I think that that's something, like you said, he hasn't really touched on that in any of his other movies. It's kind of not glorifying the violence and the bad things, but it focuses on that more so.
Oh, he's trying to make movies about like interesting characters, and like a lot of times interesting characters aren't good characters.
Yeah.
Because he makes a movie that's fun to watch about these people get their wires crossed in their brain.
Yeah.
I would say Wolf of Wall Street was one where when I first saw that in theaters, I remember feeling the length. Specifically during like the boat sequence where they do that whole thing, and that's towards the end of the movie as it is. But I remember really being like, "Ooh, we're still going for it here." And I think with like Scorsese and your Tarantinos and a lot of the other greats out there that make kind of longer movies, when I see them a second or a third time, it becomes more about like, oh, but this scene goes right into this scene that I like, and then it just clips by, and I'm not noticing the time at all. And that really happened to me for The Irishman when I like first was like, oh, and then this goes right into this great Pacino scene, and then boom, 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 and then that's that. Like for me, it was like once it really kind of clicked, I was like, oh, I love this a lot. You know, I'm not sure that I'm gonna really love it on the level that I love like a Goodfellas or something like that, or if it has that rewatchability. I think inherently it doesn't because it's not supposed to be. Like I said, or like I believe it's a response kind of in a way, but yeah, I mean it's good as hell.
It's good, yeah. I would definitely recommend it. It's not. It wouldn't be my first like within his like oh yeah you got to watch this and this. It would definitely be like watch these movies that he's really well known for, and then go back to this if you're more curious. But
it's really funny.
There's a lot of things to it. Yeah. There's so much to appreciate in it.
Yeah.
It's very very well made. Yeah, I liked it a lot. I was kind of really forgiving with the de-aging effects. I feel like a lot of people really, and that's not to say like there's definitely moments where you can tell, but I think that for someone who's like very Scorsese is one of those people who's like movies aren't what they used to be, and you don't watch things on your phone and all these Marvel movies. Like he's very innovative with like the way that technology is being incorporated into movies. Case in point, that de-aging technique.
You were talking about it on your first episode, with special effects, where it's like the CGI. This is a beautifully useful tool, especially like with all the leaps and bounds we've made in like the past couple of decades with it.
But it shouldn't.
The key is not to be the whole movie.
Right.
It's got to accentuate the things and everything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you were talking about Jurassic Park. That's another great movie where it's like, it just looks good as hell because it's CGI on top of something that's already there or whatever.
It should never be
It's a tool.
It's a tool, and your tool should not be the
art,
headlining aspect of it. Yeah.
But I can't take credit for this. I heard it somewhere, but I was like, oh, that's actually a pretty solid point. It's like a reverse Raging Bull. Where like he had a young De Niro who had to make fat and old. Now he's got fat and old De Niro. He's got to make young and everything.
Or not even that. He has a fat and old De Niro that he has to make slightly less fat and old. I guess moving on, last one before we get into our main discussion is Ford versus Ferrari, which I didn't see and didn't care.
I didn't see it either. Okay. I've heard the joke was that it's a dad movie for the ages, but it's like I'm a little cool on Matt Damon. Christian Bale is always going to turn in a great performance. Mm-hmm. I just don't really need. I don't need to see it. I'm not a big car guy. Is there some Disney in that? Is that a Disney kind of thing movie?
I wouldn't be. They own like 80% of everything.
Yeah, I feel like Disney's part of it. So that is a little bit of a stink on there. That I'm like, get out of here. I like James Mangold. Let James Mangold direct whatever he wants. After Walk the Line and Logan, and dude can do it. He's there for it. But yeah, I didn't see the movie. I can't really give an honest.
Yeah, me neither. I don't care to. That's one of those other movies where it just looked like Oscar gold.
I'm sure it's gonna. I'll catch it on TV, and I'll be like, "Hey, I'm not turning this off right now." And
Yeah.
that's the nicest thing I can say about the movie.
You can say, okay,
Hey.
well, they didn't screw up, but they didn't do anything that impressive.
Yeah.
Middle of the road.